Hi everybody, welcome back to DayZ. Now you may well have seen my how to spawn Sakhal locked military containers on Churnerous video, which is a tutorial that shows you how to do just that. And if that's why you've come to this video isn't about that. So I'll put a link to that video tutorial in the description below this one. This video is where we're going to look at the Sakhal military containers dynamic event and kind of look at how it works. So if you're scratching your head a little bit about, well, how do things like this work in the game, so that you can better understand how to make them for yourself on your own community servers or edit them or something like that, maybe this will help. So what I'll do, in the description below this one, you'll find a link to that, and in that video there's also a link to the GitHub that does everything. But if we, for example, jump over it, so this is Sakhal on my local PC server. There's the container ship that has the keys on it, and here we have a locked container. So what you've got to do, you've got to go over there, get a container key, must be a blue one, you open this, and then it has weapons inside. So it's pretty cool. And these containers spawn around the coast, sort of all around. So that's where I am there. So they spawn around here, and they spawn around here, and they spawn around here. And I think they spawn all around the coast of Sakhal, don't they? And it's a great way of making people go to different parts of the map, and also use things like boats. Get an inflatable boat and then maybe going out to the container ship to get a key, or using the boat to just hunt around and look for containers, you know, from offshore, if you like, just like that. So let's just, before this character freezes to death, let's just take him off, and let's just jump over here. And what we'll do, we'll go over to a server. Now, this is my local server, my local PC. So what we're using here is Windows File Explorer in order to look at this. But if you're familiar with using the file browser on the website for Nitrado, or if you use an FTP program, it might look a little bit different, but it will be familiar. So there's the MP missions folder. So if this is an Xbox server, it would be XB missions. And then if it was PlayStation, it'd be PS missions. So if we go in here, and then we can see various missions. Now, because this is a PC local server, I've got some modded maps as well. But if we go into Sakhal like this, there's some files that drive this dynamic event along. There's files that tell the server how many of these containers it should spawn in, and the keys as well, where they should spawn, how often they should spawn, and such, so on and so forth. So if we go into the DB directory and open up the events file here, this is the kind of the first bit. So if we do a Control F and search for static container locked, this is the event that's driving this. So on a Sakhal server, there's quite a lot actually. So there's a minimum of 14 and a nominal of 16 of these events should be happening at any one time. And what this event spawns is one of these containers. Now, when you're actually testing things like this on your local server, you have to be very careful, because what happens with events is they trigger on the map as a character generally starts to approach them. So if, for example, you will just spawn in on the map and park your character somewhere, and then use the free cam just to fly around or teleport from place to place, but without taking your character with them, often you won't see events. They won't trigger, so you get a false idea of whether they're working or not. So make sure you move your character around and then use free cam. As we can see as well, is in this particular case, the event at the moment anyway, as of the middle of July 2025, only spawns in the land container locked blue and the land container locked yellow. And then you have like the minimum of maxes and the kind of the amount of loot that it will spawn. We'll notice there's no zombies or anything spawned with these, and that's it. So if you were to try and reproduce this on another map, whether that be Churnerous, Livonia, or a custom map, this is your kind of blueprint for the event. If you start off with this, then not much else can go wrong. But the next file to look at that drives the event is the types.xml. So if we open up the types.xml and go here, what we can find in here is the shipping container keys. So if you do Control F and look for shipping container, they'll appear. So you'd have to have these on. And what we can see is there's not many There's only one blue one that should spawn in at any one time, and it's classed as a tool, military, and it's in tier 4 locations. Okay, which is probably the boat, and they're counted on the map, and they're not a dynamic event item themselves. So the keys spawn in as normal ground loot, as we would call it, to do that. But also, if we do a search for the actual container itself, so if we do a Control F and search for that, what you'll find is that in the types.xml we have all these containers as well. And you think, well, why are they in the types? Well, they're here so they don't despawn automatically. If you have an item that is spawning in on a server, whether that be by an event, or I guess you're using admin tools, or you're using what else could you use? You could use something like a custom object spawner. If you don't have an entry in the types file for that particular thing, then that item will despawn before you want it to. So it's important that you have these things listed here. And whatever you do, don't change the nominal or the minimum. You don't want these things spawning in as ground loot. All right, that's a classic problem that people have when you'll see people saying, why are my vehicles spawning inside buildings or in places where they shouldn't be? Generally, it's because they've kind of blindly gone through their types.xml and increased the nominal on things that are spawned in by events and dynamic events. So that's that. So the next thing we want to look at is the mapgroupproto. So if we go up one level in our server and open up the mapgroupproto file, we get this file. Now the mapgroupproto is a really clever file. It's really cool. In fact, what it does is this tells the server what type of loot and where that loot should spawn in a particular structure or item. So in this case, we've got the land container locked blue. We can see that it should spawn in special military stuff, well, special and military stuff, that are weapons. And it should spawn them around these coordinates. This is why when you go into a container or you go into a building, loot doesn't always spawn in the same place, but it spawns in similar places, doesn't it? You know, you'll as you wander in, I'm trying to think of say with the vehicles, for example, stuff will spawn in the boot, won't it, or on the car seats, and it won't always be on the same car seat, but when it is, it'll be in the same place. And that's because of this, because there's a limited number of spawn locations inside a building, or in this case inside a container, and the game will randomly choose one of these coordinates to spawn in the special military or military stuff. And so inside this as well, what you could also have is it could be tier controlled as well. So that's another way of doing it. But in this case, the way they're really controlling it is with the usage name special and military. So it's looking for that sort of stuff, so you can control what spawns inside these items. And I think what they do on Sakhal is they use that so that they spawn in things like M16s. In fact, we can check that. Let's see what we get. Find all. Okay, so AK-101, ammo box tracer, M14. There we go. So the M14 DMR, it will only be found inside a container on Sakhal because it has the usage name special. If something is special and military, it can be found in both places. M4A1, there we go, that's a good one. So the M4A1, one of the best assault rifles in the game, will only be found inside one of those. So that relates to that usage name special. Now, where are these containers actually going to spawn? Well, that's in a file called cfgeventspawns. So if we go to cfgeventspawns, and we open that up and we have a look at it, here it is. Let's just close this. And here we've got all the coordinates. What I'll do in the description below this video as well is I'll put a link to a video where I explain how you can use the DayZ, the PC DayZ editor mod to create a list of coordinates so that you can create your own coordinates for an event as well. So there we can see. So we can see the event is called static container locked. CFG event spawns static container locked, and the static container locked spawns land container locked blue, which will spawn in special and military stuff at those locations, at those coordinates within the container. So that's a bit there. On some events you might have, or some items, they might be tier controlled as well. But I won't go into using the tier map. Don't need to worry about that now. And then I guess one of the final things to look at is cfglimitsdefinition.xml. It's easy for me to say, which is here. And what you can do with this file is you can see we have these usage flags. So what you could do is, if you wanted to on your server have specific items that, in this case for example, spawned inside a container, you could add another usage name. I mean, you could call it usage name container, and then in the mapgroupproto inside the container you could have usage name container, so only spawn container stuff. And then you could go into your types file and have usage name container and just have stuff like that. Now we don't really have to do that here because usage name special is just for inside the container, but it's good to know about CFG limits definition and custom usages, because if you start to think about things you might well get ideas of thinking, oh wait a minute, I could combine a usage name, a custom usage name that I come up with a custom mapgroupproto.xml for a particular structure or item that spawns stuff, and therefore I could spawn stuff in particular locations that I want to. So just have a think about that. So that basically is how dynamic events kind of works. You have the events.xml with the event. Now remember, when you're creating your old ones as well, make sure that you remember you have to use the right prefix, like static, otherwise it won't work. Then we have some types entries that have the keys and have the containers. We have the mapgroupproto that in this case is telling the server where to spawn the special and military loot inside the containers. We have the cfg event spawns that is the potential spawn points. So remember, there's lots and lots of them because we know from the event there's only going to be a few spawning in. And then we have the limits definition, which is giving us our special, where is it? There we go. Our special usage, which is exclusive, I think, to the containers. So there we go. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you have, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. And of course, if you've got any ideas for videos or tutorials or questions that you'd like answering, please let me know and I'll put them on my to-do list. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.